a hearty welcome to one and all. This is episode 152 of the Confessions of a Not So Dangerous Mind podcast. I'd like to thank you all for joining me back in the office yet again. And if you're checking out this episode on the YouTube channel, haven't done so already, please click like, subscribe, comment, share, turn on those notifications. Or if you check out this episode on the audio platforms such as Spotify or iTunes, same general rule applies. Click like, subscribe, share, and turn on those notifications. So tonight's episode will feature the 15th entry in our continuing series called The Best Movie You've Never Seen. And this is a film now well over 4 decades old that some boomers, some elder millennials, some Gen Xers, but a lot of people just haven't seen it because it's so damn old. I would say if you're under 40, you probably haven't seen it. And if you have, well, it's worth seeing again. The movie is Brian DePalma's classic Hitchcock homage from 1980, starring Angie Dickinson, Keith Gordon, Nancy Allen, and the magnificent Michael Caine. The movie is Dressed to Kill. Now, Brian DePalma is a filmmaker who was blessed with an incredible eye and enormous talent. And he had a really good career. But unlike the other people of his talent level, I feel like he could have done more. He could have made more all-timers. And I would say that he's probably the most talented director never nominated for an Oscar. He did Scarface, which I don't think is very good, but a lot of people do. The Untouchables, great. Carlito's Way, great. First Mission Impossible movie made the most of a normal size budget. Nothing like, the movies now with one Tom Cruise stunt is the entire cost of the first Mission Impossible movie. De Palma came out of film school roughly the same time as his pals, Steven Spielberg, Martin Scorsese, George Lucas, and Francis Ford Coppola. Well, Spielberg didn't actually graduate, but they hit the scene at around the same time. De Palma was fiercely intellectual. He's still around. I don't mean to imply that he's gone, but he's retired now. He's 83, going on 84. He's not working anymore, at least as far as I know, he isn't. But he came on the scene like a thunderbolt with a lot of very distinctive and different early movies. He did a film called Sisters, where Margot Kidder played twin sisters. He showed a willingness to try different techniques with the camera, different techniques with editing, a little stop motion maybe, a little split screen. He was always willing to push the envelope, and he became a kind of a darling of critics, major critics of the era, such as Pauline Kael, who adored him. I mean, Pauline Kael thought he was going to have the biggest career out of all of the kind of films, the first film school generation, if you will, including Lucas and Coppola, as I said, and Scorsese and De Palma. We can call Spielberg part of the film school generation, but he didn't graduate. And he supposedly, he started at UCLA. He didn't need to. He already knew exactly what he was doing. And but De Palma had a thing for Hitchcock. Hitchcock was clearly his favorite filmmaker, and he made a number of movies deliberately echoing, paying homage to, or some critics accused him of outright ripping off huge chunks of various Hitchcock films. The movie Obsession, it's not good. I love Cliff Robertson. It's not a good movie. A lot of people thought it was, this is amazing. It's not good. And The Fury with Kirk Douglas and Amy Irving, among others, also not good. Dressed to Kill, I believe, is his best film in this genre, because he did the movie Raising Cain in the early 90s with John Lithgow. That's not good either. Like, there are movies of his that I look at some of the critical reactions where they say, oh my God, this is fantastic. I don't know what movie they watched. Like, what, are you kidding me? Dressed to Kill is different. And sometimes it's about the command of the material and getting the right actors. Because Dress to Kill, if Obsession is practically a blatant ripoff of Vertigo, Dress to Kill is very, very close to Psycho, Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho. I would argue it's closer to Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho than Obsession is to Vertigo. But Dress to Kill works because in spite of the chunks that it kind of lifts from Psycho, it feels like it's telling a different story. And the actors are so convincing that, yeah, we can look back on the film and say, okay, Angie Dickinson, we don't realize this going in, and I'm going to have to go into some very light spoiler territory. Angie Dickinson's character is kind of like the Janet Leigh character in Psycho. She's not as morally, I would say no way is she as morally or ethically compromised as Marion Crane or Janet Leigh's character in Psycho. But the kind of end result of her character echoes events in the movie Psycho. And Keith Gordon, who plays her son, her character's name is Kate Miller, and Keith Gordon plays Peter. Keith Gordon had an interesting career because he appeared in a number of movies in the 80s that made a big splash, including this one, because this movie, Dress to Kill, was a significant box office hit. It grossed over $30 million at a time when that was a big gross. And this was not a large budget film by any stretch of the imagination. It grossed back, I think, at least 4 or 5 times its production cost, at least according to the numbers we have on the internet. I don't know that they're actually true. I didn't do the accounting report for this film, but it was a box office hit. And so Keith Gordon plays the son in this movie. He's very, very good. He's never less than believable in what could have easily been a kind of a screechy, whiny sort of role, but he makes it work. And so he was in the John Carpenter adaptation of Stephen King's novel Christine, about a boy who has, shall we say, an unhealthy obsession with his car. He's basically in love with his car. I'm being serious. He's in love with his car. Keith Gordon then was in Back to School, a very funny movie with the screamingly funny Rodney Dangerfield in 1986, and Robert Downey Jr., very young, and William Zabka from Cobra Kai was also in that movie. It's fucking riot. One definitely top 10 funniest big studio films of the 80s. So he established himself as a solid actor, could do either a little thriller and a horror movie and now a comedy with Back to School. And then he became a filmmaker. He did a great World War II kind of anti-war World War II film called A Midnight Clear in the early 90s. He was very young. He was no more than mid-30s. And that is a very, very good film with Ethan Hawke, among others. Now, Gary Sinise was in it too, before Forrest Gump. So the basic plot of Dress to Kill, it doesn't really seem to be setting us up for a thriller, except for the fact that there is a dream sequence right up front that has elements of Psycho. Like the fact that Brian DePalma sets a key early scene, whether dream or reality, in a shower, and there's bloodshed. Psycho, Hitchcock, I love Hitchcock. I mean, he's screaming it at the audience. But Angie Dickinson plays a somewhat unhappily married woman, and she has a psychoanalyst played by always fucking great Michael Caine. Dr. Elliot, or Robert Elliot, is the character he plays in the film. And Angie is frustrated and unhappy, and she kind of flirts with Dr. Elliot. I think she's, we're not really sure. Is she trying to see if she's still hot, which she is presented as for sure, or is she trying to seduce him? The movie doesn't necessarily make it clear, but it doesn't matter. The point is made. She's unhappy. And whether she's just flexing or whether she's genuinely curious, as I wonder what this Dr. Elliot would be like. I got a thing for British guys, whatever it might be. It plays. It works. And so she ends up meeting a man in a museum, and it's a fucking absurd scene, but it's exceedingly well choreographed, as much as, well, this is bullshit. This could never happen. And something happens to Kate that spins the film into an entirely different direction. And we meet another main character, played by actress that Brian DePalma was married to at the time, a very solid actress with an unusual line delivery, which in the right role could be perfect, and in other roles was awful. In this movie, it really works. I would argue that the film that she made, the DePalma film that she did with John Travolta, which was the movie he made after Dress to Kill, there are no horror film elements in Blowout. Blowout's a straightforward thriller. Dress to Kill is a thriller with more what you would call horror film elements. I don't like her performance in Blowout. I think it's terrible. Her line readings work beautifully in Dress to Kill. I think she's fantastic in the movie. It's certainly her best performance, at least that I've seen. I remember her in Poltergeist 3, I thought she sucked in that movie too. But who am I? I'm just a guy here talking into a camera, right? Giving my opinion. Dennis Franz, later of NYPD Blue and movies, shows up as, basically it's a guy that he plays in NYPD Blue, cop. He might as well be the same character. And Nancy Allen's character, who is, in the world of the movie, a prostitute, she witnessed a murder. And her name's Liz. She witnessed a murder. She doesn't know exactly what she saw, and we as the audience don't know what she saw. So this is the kind of thriller horror film where we don't have any more information than the characters. Somebody committed a murder, somebody who was cloaked in shadow, wearing some kind of disguise, I guess, and we don't know. Our opinion, well, who do you think killed her? I don't know. I didn't see shit. Yeah, the audience didn't see shit, and neither did Liz. She didn't see anything. So she meets the son, the Keith Gordon character, and they kind of join forces to try to figure out what the hell happened and who is this mysterious figure that seemingly committed a murder. And what can maybe the doctor, the good Dr. Elliot, can help us to make sense of this complete insanity that has taken place. There's a lot of somewhat heavy-handed attention to itself drawing shots of mirrors and close-ups and just weird camera angles and different sort of stylistic choices that, a director who is confident and at the top of his craft, as DePalma clearly was here, is going to do. And normally the sorts of things that I'm talking about can kind of be a turnoff, but in this movie, it's as if DePalma knows he's got a really good story with a lot of jump scares and a lot of twists and surprises, and actors really giving it their all and not coming across as if they're acting. They're coming across as if these insane events are really happening. And what the hell are we all going to do? And who's going to end up dying? How is this going to play out? All of this. The echoes of Psycho continue through the story. Again, I don't want to spoil too much. This movie is available on streaming. But the horror film elements take us by surprise because this is not a supernatural thriller. This is not a Wolfman, Dracula, Frankenstein, the creature from the Black Lagoon, Candyman, Pinhead. It's nothing like that. But DePalma's skill of framing and lighting and using these kind of weird editing tricks, he's able to raise the goosebumps as if we're watching, let's say M. Night Shyamalan's Signs, that incredible scene where Joaquin Phoenix leaps from his chair when he sees an alien on his fucking TV. He's able to get us and unnerve us and make us terrified of whatever this figure is who committed this terrible murder that the Nancy Allen character of Liz has seen. And then everybody's trying to figure out what the fuck is going on here. Who is this? Who did this? And I remember the first time I saw the movie, I read a lot about it. I read Roger Ebert's review, and Ebert loved the film. But to his credit, he didn't spoil anything. He basically talked in such generalities that when I watched the movie, I was not expecting any of what happened. And the reality is, we watch a Hollywood film, hell, a foreign film, an art cinema film from Antonioni or Rossellini or any of the masters, Renoir. When a movie establishes a certain character as the central character, well, this is the protagonist. When something happens to take that alleged protagonist out of play, we're adrift. What are we doing? What's going to happen now? And it can seem trite, and it can seem like a cheap trick. I don't mean the band. But in this movie, the way that we are jolted and we are spun in a different direction and honestly saying, well, now what? It could be an audience alienation tactic, but here we genuinely just want to know what the hell happened. And my sense was that, okay, I'm shocked, but I'm riveted. I've never seen anything quite like this. How is this going to turn out? 'Cause honestly, the first 40 minutes of this movie, there is stuff that happens. It'll have you howling with laughter, feeling the goosebumps of, holy shit, this is scary, and scratching your head like, what the hell did I just see? On the split screen, in slow-mo, with bad lighting so we can't tell who it is. What's going on here? The film holds us in its grasp. And it's always nice to see, at least for me, let's say 80s technology, what would have been considered groundbreaking, cutting-edge technology to try to solve a crime. And in movies like Blue Velvet, Kyle MacLachlan's main character has a contraption to take pictures. It's pretty fucking cool for the mid-1980s now. What, are you kidding me? He wouldn't have had to do anything so extravagant. He's got a phone, he could set up one phone here and something there, and you could do something up there, as opposed to pulling one string and pulling another string to take a picture. But this movie uses technology which was state of the art at the time it was made, which movie was shot probably 45 years ago. And even though we might giggle in 2024, oh my God, what the hell is he working with here? The movie makes it work because the actors are all committed to the bit. They've all brought their A game. Even Dennis Franz, who, he's given some weird performances in various movies. And if you've seen him in NYPD Blue, you're going to laugh at his character. If you haven't, then it's fine. But there's no way you won't be able to say, this is the same guy from NYPD Blue. He's even reading his lines in the identical fashion, the kind of snark, the sarcasm. Oh, sure, lady, sure. But it's okay. It's not even really a weakness. I don't think his character was intended to be comic relief, but he is. It's comic relief. And you know what? This movie is so serious and has moments of such, where the suspense is like, holy shit. He kind of breaks the tension. He breaks the tension a little bit. So without spoiling much, there is a moment at the Oscars in 1998, the year of Titanic, where Billy Crystal made a very obscure joke that a lot of people in the audience got. Less people would get it now because at that time this movie was less than 20 years old. Now it's 44 years old. So Billy Crystal was talking about a certain individual who had been much discussed in Hollywood. And Billy turned to the audience, and I think he was supposed to be looking at Michael Caine, and he said, is it me? Or do they look like Michael Caine in Dressed to Kill? And they flashed to Michael Caine cracking up, and the audience, almost everyone in the audience was laughing because they all got the reference and they understood where he was coming from. That's a joke that's like dated humor. That same joke told now, a lot of people are going to be scratching their heads. What the fuck? I never saw Dressed to Kill. What is this movie about? What does it have to do with Michael Caine? Well, forget it. He starred in the movie. I've seen this film, I think, 5 times. And even though I kind of know what's going to happen, there are so many obscure, quirky, weird beats in the film that if I were to be dropped into this movie, let's say 50 minutes in, I wouldn't necessarily know exactly where we are in the story, because there are so many different plot threads that are just kind of going on at one time that it's difficult to get your balance. The movie keeps you off balance. It deliberately confuses you. And that's a little bit of the influence of Hitchcock with Vertigo, even though this movie plot-wise and conceptually really doesn't have anything, to me, in common with Vertigo. It's closer to Psycho. But the sense of keeping the audience off balance and making them almost whipping their heads back and forth, metaphorically, trying to figure out what the fuck is going on here. What is happening here? How is any of this possible? And what the hell does a doctor what is he going to do to help? Because Nancy Allen's character seems to be in harm's way. Do we want to have the kid die? What are we going to do? So Kane reads his lines in a very sort of flat, disaffected kind of monotone. He doesn't really change facial expressions very much. It's hard to tell if he's deliberately being vague or whether this is just how he is. Because I've known doctors who, when they weren't working, were hilarious. But when they were and are, they're as dry as a bone. So we go through the movie wondering, is Dr. Elliot, is he as stiff as he presents? Or is he simply trying to be the best possible doctor for his patients? Movie doesn't necessarily answer that question. But for somebody like Michael Caine, who had already had a huge career, had already been a massive star, and a guy that would go on to win 2 Oscars, Hannah and Her Sisters and Cider House Rules, in supporting roles, it's a really ballsy performance. That's as much as I'll say. It's really nervy. It took guts for him to agree to this role. And it isn't that he couldn't do it or that he didn't have the acting talent to pull off the role of this doctor. But it's the kind of role that somebody could have looked at and said, I'm not doing this. The producers, just to give you a reference of where I'm going with this. For example, Christian Bale was set to play Patrick Bateman in American Psycho, which ended up coming out in 2000, 25 years ago. Leonardo DiCaprio's team was looking for what would be his first project after Titanic. And there were 3 projects that he was circling. One, the project he ended up doing, The Beach, based on the Alex Garland novel, a very, very good movie. I think it was directed by Danny Boyle, who had done Trainspotting. He was circling Spike Lee's Summer of Sam, which I never understood what he possibly could have seen in that. I love Spike Lee, but that movie's just really, really bad. And his people wanted him to at least have a crack at reading the script for American Psycho. Even though Lionsgate, they had Christian Bale. If DiCaprio had expressed interest, sorry, Christian, here's your $5 million. We're making it with Leo. So in this instance, DiCaprio did not like American Psycho, or he didn't think that it would be wise for him at this point in his career to play that particular role. Summer of Sam, he flat out didn't like the script. I think he liked the idea of American Psycho, but he probably thought that Bale was a better choice to play the part. And I think also his handlers got a little nervous. Do we really want to be playing a Wall Street serial killer, we think? Do we really need to be doing that? Hacking people up with a chainsaw like you're Al Pacino in Scarface by Brian DePalma? No, thank you. Either DiCaprio or his reps or both of them. No, thank you. We're all set here. I'll just go ahead and make The Beach. But Michael Caine, whatever reservations he had about playing Dr. Elliot, about working with a guy whose reputation wasn't really that great in a lot of quarters. Everyone knew that DePalma had enormous talent, but damn, the Fury sucked. And as I say, now he did Carrie. Carrie's fantastic. But the Fury was not good. Obsession was not good. So he was very kind of hit, miss, up or down. But whatever it was that was in the script, that Kane was willing to take a risk. And I respect that. Doing something completely out of the blue and out of the ordinary for your career. I mean, his next movie after this was the movie I talked about, Escape to Victory, or Victory, with Stallone and Pele and Max von Sydow, among others. That's a more conventional Michael Caine role. He's essentially playing, well, not essentially, he's playing a good guy. A world-renowned soccer player who's in a prisoner of war camp during World War II, and let's go play and beat those nasty fucking Nazis in a soccer match. Hoorah! Dressed to Kill, if you like thrillers, if you like horror, if you like suspense films that are a little off-kilter from each of those particular genres, I guarantee you will enjoy Dressed to Kill. The 15th entry in our continuing series of the best movie you've never seen. Brian DePalma directed 1980 film starring Sir Michael Caine, Keith Gordon, Angie Dickinson, Dennis Franz, and Nancy Allen. This has been episode 152 of the Confessions of a Not So Dangerous Mind podcast. I'd like to thank you all for joining me on this somewhat late Friday night here in New York. But if you catch this episode on the YouTube channel, haven't done so already, please click like, subscribe, comment, share, turn on those notifications. Or if you catch this episode on the audio platforms such as Spotify or iTunes, same general rule applies. Click like, subscribe, share, and turn on those notifications. I'll be back with episode 153 real soon. Until then, peace out and enjoy the rest of your Friday night.